Member for Dartmouth South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Premier. All early childhood educators in Nova Scotia have the same professional training and credentials regardless of whether they work in a licensed childcare centre or a pre-primary classroom. However, most ECEs working in licensed childcare are paid far less than their colleagues in pre-primary. ECEs are frontline workers who helped restart Nova Scotia's economy and made it possible for businesses and public services to reopen. Mr. Speaker, given that the government sets both fees and wages in childcare, will the Premier demonstrate his commitment to pay equity by ensuring funding is adequate to provide all early childhood educators fair compensation?
The Honourable Minister of Early Childhood Education and Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank the member for the question and the conversations that we've been having to date. I think it's important to recognize two things. When we came into government, our ECEs were the lowest paid in the country. That's why we invested in the wage floor to ensure that we could support their wages. And this budget that we just tabled also has $75 million towards a sector that continues to support the sector, whether it's through wages, training, and other education opportunities for the sector. As a government, we have ensured, we are one of the few jurisdictions to ensure that we continue to fund the sector during the pandemic to ensure that when we could open back up, that these centres were available, and I'm happy to report that 98% of them are open.
The Honourable Member for Dartmouth South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wage floors came in a long time ago. They were a great step. It's time for the next step. Recruitment and retention of qualified ECEs has been a long-term challenge, and what we're talking about today is a big part of that challenge. The implementation of pre-primary has intensified worker shortages. Those working in pre-primary have access to affordable health and dental benefits which are not available to most ECEs working in licensed childcare. Extending health and dental to all ECEs is a small step the government could take to recognize the value of the work they do and the instability caused in the sector by the introduction of pre-primary. Mr. Speaker, will the minister commit to providing affordable health and dental benefits to all ECEs as it already does for ECEs in pre-primary?
The Honourable Minister of Early Childhood Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a couple of pieces to that question. So I'll say this, that pre-primary has been a huge success. We've implemented the last piece. We now have 900 additional staff working within the system now, supporting those 4-year-olds. As we all know, 25% of those 4-year-olds were only accessing some form of early childhood education leading into school. I know that there are hundreds of people enrolled in the programs across the province to get into the sector. They see a future for this. And I'll make the same commitment that I made during debate last evening, is that we are fully engaged with our federal counterparts on what a universal system and what supports may be there. And I plan on meeting with a number of the stakeholders in the coming week to continue the conversations about what we can do to support the sector.